Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. Noah Newman never expected the night to end with his entire world splitting down the middle, but that was exactly what happened the moment he overheard the whispered confession that shattered every illusion he'd built around Sienna Bacall. For weeks, he had defended her, shielded her, and sworn to anyone who dared doubt her that she had cut all ties with Matt Clark, but now, as he stood frozen in the Newman Ranch hallway, Noah heard the words that proved everything he believed was wrong. Sienna hadn't just been tangled in her husband's chaos, she had been feeding it. She had been Matt's eyes and ears from the start, sending him bits of information, updates, moments, vulnerabilities, everything she witnessed inside the Newman orbit, all under the guise of a frightened woman starting over. And when Noah stumbled into Sharon's room, unable to contain the truth and trembling with betrayal, the shock of his confession sent Sharon collapsing to the floor as her heart rate spiked and her vision blurred. The revelation hit Sharon like a bullet. She had invited Sienna into her home, trusted her with her son, defended her against Victor's suspicions, only to learn she had been harboring a spy working for a man who nearly destroyed their family decades ago. The air thickened with panic as Noah cradled Sharon, shouting for help while struggling with the devastating reality that the woman he had sworn to protect had been deceiving him all along. And yet, even as chaos erupted around them, the darkest truth was still ahead, because this wasn't just betrayal. This was a death sentence for Sienna Bacall, a woman now trapped between a vengeful ex-husband, an enraged family dynasty, and the crushing weight of her own lies. The terrifying part was that Sienna didn't fully understand what Noah had overheard. All she knew was that when he finally confronted her, eyes red, voice shaking, heartbreak dripping from every syllable, she felt the walls of her world begin to collapse. Noah demanded the truth she had spent months burying, but she only managed broken fragments of explanation, half-truths tinged with fear, because she knew that telling the whole story meant exposing not only her guilt but the full scope of Matt's rage. And Noah, already shattered, felt himself drifting between fury and desperate disbelief. He had made promises, bold, heartfelt ones, that he would protect her from Matt, from danger, from the past that kept clawing at her heels. But now that protection felt like a cruel joke, because he had unknowingly delivered her straight into the center of Matt Clark's revenge path. Genoa City wasn't just unsafe for Sienna, it was the core of the storm. GC was where Matt's hatred lived, festering, fueled by loss, betrayal, and a marriage imploding in spectacular fashion. And as Noah processed the enormity of what Sienna had done, he realized she had not merely endangered herself, she had handed Matt exactly what he needed, access to the Newmans. Victor Newman, the man who had financially gutted Matt and snatched away his nightclub, had already crossed a line from Matt's perspective, and now Matt was readying a retaliatory strike that would blindside the entire family. But Sienna's presence in Noah's life, in his home, under Newman protection, changed everything. To Matt, it would look like she wasn't just rebelling or running away, she was upgrading. She was entering a lifestyle Matt always believed the Newmans used to crush smaller people like him. She was living under the wing of a billionaire family, eating their food, sleeping in their guest rooms, walking across their property as if she belonged, as if she could replace him with privilege and power. And that insult burned hotter than the affair itself. Matt Clark, a man who built himself up from nothing, would not tolerate being humiliated, and Sienna's move to Genoa City guaranteed the one thing she had been trying to avoid. She had made herself the centerpiece of Matt's vengeance. Victor saw this coming long before the reveal. He had warned Noah that bringing Sienna into their orbit would drag danger straight into their lives, but Noah brushed it off in the name of love. Now, with Sharon recovering from the shock on the couch, clutching Noah's hand and trying to steady her breathing, even she couldn't deny that Victor had been right. They should have sent Sienna far away, anywhere but here. She should have vanished into anonymity, changed her name, disappeared into a city where Matt could never find her. Instead, she had stepped directly into the lion's den, and Noah had escorted her there himself. And the weight of that guilt nearly crushed him. Because as Sharon whispered, "Noah, what did she do?" he had to say the words that sliced him open: "She worked with Matt. She was his spy." The moment the truth echoed through the Newman Ranch, everything shifted. Security tightened. Orders were barked. Victor's fury was volcanic. Nick was livid, pacing like a storm on the verge of breaking. Nikki kept glancing toward the door, terrified Matt might already be watching them from the shadows. And through it all, Sienna stood alone in the center of the living room like a woman awaiting execution, every Newman pair of eyes weighing her, judging her, condemning her. She felt like an intruder, a trespasser, and the truth was, she always had been. Even she could admit it. She never belonged here, not in this powerful dynasty, not among the people Matt had always accused of looking down on him. She had been desperate, scared, confused, and Matt exploited that. But now, she wasn't sure there was anything left to save. What made it worse was the haunting possibility that Genoa City didn't want her, and the audience watching her storyline unfold didn't want her either. Many felt she didn't fit, that she was a Los Angeles character thrown into a GC storyline where she didn't quite blend. Even Sienna felt that misalignment in her bones. She had come to this city not as a heroine or a villain, but as a misplaced soul searching for safety, only to become a symbol of chaos. Characters like Damian Kane had been created for a purpose, to push a plot, to trigger emotional explosions, and then they vanished, sacrificed to the narrative. And now Sienna was starting to feel like she was written from the same fabric, a woman meant to ignite drama, tear open old wounds, reveal secrets, and eventually be eliminated by the very danger she tried to escape. Matt Clark was not the type of man to forgive, forget, or walk away. He was a man of vengeance, a man who believed Sienna owed him not just fidelity but obedience. And with her betrayal exposed, with Noah fighting to process a wound that felt eerily similar to his past heartbreaks, Matt's next move would be catastrophic. He would want Sienna to suffer. He would want her to understand what it felt like to lose everything. And worst of all, he would want Noah, Nick's son, Sharon's son, the boy Matt once manipulated during earlier schemes, to pay the emotional price for daring to take his wife. Matt may very well make Noah watch the life drain out of Sienna as punishment for both their sins. The Newmans, bracing for Matt's attack, knew Sienna was now the most vulnerable piece on the board. If Matt wanted leverage, wanted blood, wanted chaos, she was his doorway in. And that realization sent a cold dread through the entire family. Because even if Noah still cared for her, even if he wanted to forgive her, he couldn't deny the brutal truth. Bringing Sienna to Genoa City may have sealed her fate. And now, with her lies exposed and Matt closing in, Sienna Bacall's days may be numbered. She might become the casualty of a revenge war she never should have walked into, another tragic footnote in Newman history, the woman Noah tried to save but ultimately couldn't protect. In the end, the real question wasn't whether Sienna would survive. The question was whether she was ever meant to. Is Sienna doomed to be killed off, casualty of Matt's revenge? Sienna Bacall may be a character who's doomed to be killed off. Will Sienna become a casualty of Matt Clark aka Mitch Bacall's revenge, which will come to Genoa City soon enough? The more Noah Newman promises to keep Sienna safe, the less it seems like he'll actually be able to do that. Noah seems certain he can offer the protection Sienna needs, but GC may actually be the most dangerous place for her. We get why Noah would want to surround Sienna with Newman security and keep her close, but he's brought her straight into the revenge zone. Victor Newman wiped Matt out financially and stole his nightclub, so Matt's obviously going to retaliate. In fact, Matt's already cooking up a plot to score leverage on the Newmans in an unexpected way. Sienna might have been able to escape that if she'd gone as far away from Noah as possible like Victor wanted, but now she's right there waiting for Matt to get payback on her, too. In other words, it would have been much better for Sienna to disappear instead of attaching herself to the Newmans. From Matt's perspective, it's going to look like Sienna's becoming part of this wealthy family and living in the lap of luxury. The fact that Matt's got such a negative history with Nick Newman and Sharon Newman is going to make matters worse. Now that Sienna is living in Genoa City with Noah, it's only going to make Matt angrier about the affair and how his marriage blew up. Matt may not rest until Sienna faces a grim fate for cheating on him, so he may take great pleasure in forcing Noah to watch. Sienna admitted to Noah she felt like an intruder now that she's hanging around all the Newmans in GC. We'd say Sienna's right since she indeed feels like a bit of an intruder to plenty of fans, like a character meant for the Los Angeles scene who doesn't really fit in Genoa City. Sienna may be one of those characters like Damian Kane who's meant to fulfill a certain role in the story and then get killed off for drama's sake. The fallout from the revelation only grew more suffocating, more electrified, more impossible to contain as night bled into the early hours of morning, and the horrifying truth continued to ripple through the Newman estate like a silent explosion. Sienna Bacall, pale and shaking, stood in the center of the grand living room as if rooted to the floor, unable to escape the storm she had unleashed. Noah, still reeling, couldn't decide whether to look at her or look away. Every second his emotions swung wildly between heartbreak and rage, disbelief and a bruising sense of humiliation. The room itself felt haunted by the echoes of Sharon's collapse, by the frantic shouts for help, by the image of paramedics kneeling beside his mother as she struggled to breathe. It was Sienna's truth, Sienna's betrayal, that had pushed Sharon past her limit, reopening wounds she had spent years stitching together with fragile hope. And as Sharon rested now in the upstairs bedroom, still under observation, the Newmans gathered downstairs like a tribunal preparing for judgment. Victor, his jaw clenched tight, looked more dangerous than Sienna had ever seen him. Nick was pacing relentlessly, running a hand through his hair in the same repetitive motion, as if trying to scrub away the image of yet another threat infiltrating his family. But the worst part, the part that sent chills across Sienna's arms, was the silence. No one yelled. No one accused. No one exploded. The quiet made everything more terrifying. Because that quiet meant the Newmans were calculating. Planning. Preparing for war. And Sienna was the detonator who had already gone off. Noah finally broke the silence with a raw, trembling whisper. "Why did you do it, Sienna? Just tell me why." It wasn't anger now, it was devastation. The type of devastation that came from realizing that someone you brought into your life, someone you defended to the ends of the earth, someone you let into your heart, had been lying to you in ways so foundational that you no longer recognized your own judgment. Sienna swallowed hard, her voice barely above a breath as she tried to explain. "I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I didn't know what else to do. Matt, he was everywhere. He threatened me, Noah. He threatened my family back in LA. He said he would ruin them, expose them, drag them through the mud. I thought," her voice cracked, fear gripping her chest. "I thought if I just sent him small things, nothing serious, just little details, it would keep him calm. I thought I could manage him. I thought I could protect you by keeping him distracted." But the explanation sounded hollow, even to her. Because the truth was darker than she was willing to admit, darker than Noah was ready to hear. She hadn't been just a frightened wife trying to escape her monster of a husband. She had been trapped, manipulated, coerced, yes, but she had also felt something deeper, guilt. Shame. A belief that maybe, somehow, she deserved what Matt was doing to her. And that psychological chain had kept her tethered far longer than logic would allow. Victor stepped closer, his eyes piercing through her defenses like needles. "You could have come to me," he whispered, though his voice was laced with ice. "You could have told us. Instead, you brought a dangerous man access to my family." His words were controlled, measured, but lethal. "Matt Clark will not get within 10 feet of this house. But understand this, Sienna, you put my son in danger. You put my grandson in danger. You put Sharon in danger." With each name, Sienna felt smaller and smaller. "And because of that," Victor concluded, "you may have painted a target on your back that even I may not be able to remove." The temperature in the room seemed to drop, and Sienna's knees nearly gave out beneath the weight of that truth. She had always known Matt was capable of violence. She had seen him at his worst, the rage, the manipulation, the chilling threats delivered with a smile. But hearing Victor Newman, the most powerful man in Genoa City, admit that even he might not be able to protect her, that was something else entirely. It was a death sentence spoken aloud. Noah wasn't ready to give up on her, not yet, even as every instinct screamed at him to run. His heart, stubborn and bruised, clung to the pieces of the woman he thought she was. "Dad," Noah said, turning to Nick, "we can protect her. We just have to keep her close." Security, Nick cut him off sharply. Security won't fix this. This isn't some corporate threat or random criminal. This is Matt Clark. This is a man who has spent years obsessing over this family. A man who hates your mother. A man who hates me. And now he hates you because you took his wife. Nick's voice rose, cracking with equal parts fury and panic. You think he's coming after her? No. He's coming after you, Noah. He wants you broken. He wants you to suffer. He wants to rip away anything, anyone, you care about. And the implication settled over the room like poison. Sienna wasn't just in danger. She was the danger. She was the weapon Matt had been using, and now that she had been exposed, Matt would come to claim the damage he believed he was owed. Upstairs, Sharon slowly regained consciousness, her breathing still uneven. She whispered Noah's name before slipping back into restless sleep, haunted by memories she thought were long buried. Matt Clark had once tormented her family, nearly shattering her marriage, nearly destroying her life. And now his shadow had returned, through the woman her son trusted the most. Downstairs, Sienna heard the faint sound of Sharon's movement and felt a fresh wave of guilt crash through her. She had never wanted Sharon hurt. She had never wanted Noah hurt. But intent didn't matter now. Consequences did. The question hung over her like smoke: was she meant to survive this? Or was she, like so many characters written into Genoa City to stir chaos, designed to burn out in a blaze of tragedy? Damian Kane. J.T. Hellstrom. Even Chance's multiple near-deaths. Genoa City had a pattern: introduce a character, use them as a catalyst, and then dispose of them the moment their purpose was fulfilled. And Sienna felt her fate tightening around her like a noose. She wasn't a Newman. She wasn't a long-term fixture. She was an outsider dragged into a decades-old war she barely understood. And now the war was closing in. Noah saw the fear in her eyes and softened, even if only for a heartbeat. Tell me everything Matt made you do, he whispered. Sienna hesitated, tears gathering. He wanted schedules. Movements. Even small things, like when Sharon went to therapy. When Victor was out of town. When Nikki was drinking sparkling water instead of wine, he said it meant she was struggling. Noah's stomach turned. She continued, voice shaking, he wanted to know when you were with me. When you weren't. What you said about him. Who you talked to. He wanted to know how close I was getting to Sharon. He said the closer I got, the more valuable the information. The room spun for Noah. His mother. His family. His routines. His vulnerabilities. All of it. Whispered into Matt's ear. Victor's expression grew darker with every word. Nick clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles went white. Nikki pressed a trembling hand to her chest. And Noah felt a cold, hollow ache where his faith once lived. Sienna reached out, but he stepped back, the space between them turning into a chasm that might never be crossed again. But then Victor's phone buzzed. One message. No sender ID. Just a single sentence. You took everything from me. Now I take her. A chill ripped through the room. Sienna's breath caught in her throat. Noah lunged toward Victor, trying to see the message with his own eyes, but Nick grabbed Sienna instinctively, pushing her behind him in a protective stance that contradicted the fury still etched across his face. It meant only one thing: Matt wasn't bluffing. Matt wasn't simmering. Matt wasn't plotting from afar. He was en route. Sienna's knees buckled. She clung to the back of the sofa for support. Tears streamed down her cheeks as her voice broke. No, he can't be here, not already. Victor's voice sliced through the room. He's close. Too close. And suddenly the house erupted into motion, security swarming, locks checked, alarms rearmed. But even in the chaos, everyone knew the truth: Matt Clark didn't send warnings unless he wanted you terrified. Unless he wanted you to understand that nothing could stop him. Noah rushed to Sienna, grabbing her face in trembling hands. You're not going anywhere alone. Not for a second. Do you hear me? His voice cracked with raw fear that he was about to watch another woman he cared for be ripped away from him. But even as he held her, Sienna could see the truth in his eyes. He was terrified. Not just of Matt, but of losing what little trust remained. And so the night stretched on, a night of fear, of preparation, of waiting for a man who delighted in psychological torture. A man who had already decided that Sienna Bacall would not leave this storyline alive. She might try to run. The Newmans might try to hide her. Noah might try to shield her with his own life. But the feeling in the air, the dread clinging to every heartbeat, made one thing clear: Sienna Bacall was not just in danger. She was marked. Marked for revenge. Marked for punishment. Marked as the next victim in Matt Clark's twisted legacy. And unless something drastic happened, something miraculous, the clock ticking down on Sienna's life was growing louder, faster, and more merciless by the second.